What is up, you guys? It is Geography Joe coming at you with a brand new video. Today we are going to be looking at weird borders between the suburbs of Cuyahoga County, which is the county that Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown, is in. Now, I already made a video explaining the history of Cleveland itself, the early history. I have this map in front of me that it was in the video, the one I drew in the hand-drawn map. But so basically what I wanted to make this video about is this is the original 19 townships of Cuyahoga County. I believe this map is from like, it says right here, 1874. So in 1874, Cleveland was really the only city in the county. And there were a few other ones. There was like Berea and Bedford, and Strongsville was just getting started. Brooklyn, Chagrin Falls, and Olmsted Falls all existed at that time. But most of the suburbs of Cuyahoga County are pretty recent, mostly like the early 1900s is when most of them were created, and there are now today, instead of the 19 townships that once existed, there are now 59 suburbs of Cleveland in Cuyahoga County alone. So the city of Cleveland plus 58 other independent municipalities that all exist with their own mayor, their own police force, their own tax laws, their own zoning codes. It's incredibly inefficient, and it's kind of fascinating to me because we have so many suburbs. Like, if I drive from my house to somewhere 10 minutes away, I'm driving through like 3 or 4 cities no matter which direction I go in. And that is because I live on the east side, which is where a lot of the overlapping cities are. But even on the west side, you end up with a lot of suburbs for not much of a reason. And the thing with Cleveland is that we have been, as a county and as a city, losing population since about the 1950s. Like, Cleveland is not a growing city. If anything, it's stagnant or dying. So the fact that we have 59 municipalities working not together within our county is incredibly inefficient. But the thing is, these borders, the thing is that the borders between these suburbs are actually kind of fascinating, and a lot of them follow some certain patterns and laws and rules that you'll start to see. And if you're from Cleveland, you're going to find this really interesting because these are things that I think about whenever I'm in a car, or on a bike, or walking. I mean, I can look at a street and be like, this is the way University Heights paves their streets. Like, anyway, let's get into the map. And here we go. So we're going to start with a really weirdly shaped suburb. So let's start with, let's just start with the oldest suburb of Cleveland. So the oldest suburbs of Cleveland are over here. Cleveland Heights, East Cleveland, Bracknell, Shaker Heights. And Bracknell is what we're going to start with because Bracknell is the only suburb completely surrounded on all sides by Cleveland. If you look at this, I click on the city of Cleveland, and these are the borders of the city of Cleveland. You'll see that Bracknell is totally surrounded on 3 of the 4 sides. Of course, the other side is Lake Erie, by Cleveland. Why is this? So Bracknell was originally incorporated in 1902, and it was supposed to be a very, very wealthy retreat where people built mansions along Lake Erie's shores. And if I go to satellite imagery, you can clearly see the mansions. I mean, you can see the difference in greenery between Bracknell and neighboring parts of Cleveland. If you go to Bracknell and you zoom in and you look at the lake, you can see how gigantic, man. I've driven through Bracknell like a million times. Most of these are like gated and you can't even get into the neighborhoods. But like, holy moly, this is where like the 1%, like the 0.1% of Cleveland lives. That's their yacht club right there, their yacht marina. So what's interesting about Bracknell is that it's just a little strip of land along Lake Erie's coast, but it's 3 miles of shoreline, and the city of Cleveland only has like 6. So you have this rich enclave that only has 1,000 residents taking up half of the lakeshore that the city of Cleveland owns. I mean, wouldn't you think that that would be better served for public use, or at least the city of Cleveland's use? But no, instead, because this is America, it's just giant mansions for singular families that have a lot of money. And what's even funnier is that Bracknell is right next to Glenville, St. Clair, and South Collinwood, which are 3 of the poorest communities, the poorest neighborhoods, I should say, of Cleveland, as well as the entire state of Ohio. So you have one of the richest communities in the entire state right next to some of the poorest places in the state. And it's just crazy. And the reason that this works is because the border is actually Interstate 90. So when in 1902 there were no interstate highways, but there was a street that separated Bracknell from Cleveland, and that's why it was able to retain its independence politically. So 90 is the border, so you basically have a highway acting as the border between, like, heaven and hell, almost. And I hate to say it like that, like Bratnall's heaven and the hood is hell, but you just have to cross under the bridge, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, you go from these crazy mansions, I mean, like, nothing you've ever seen before. Look at this picture. And then you're just in this horribly impoverished, rundown neighborhood, and it's like, it's sad, but it's the way it is, and there's nothing I can do about it, I guess. So anyway, if we move on, we can go up to East Cleveland. Now, if you look at East Cleveland, this is another rags to riches to rags story. So East Cleveland was one of the first suburbs of Cleveland to ever be created. It was like 1895, I want to say. And Euclid Avenue used to be known. Euclid Avenue is this diagonal street running through the center of East Cleveland. It's also downtown Cleveland's main street, Euclid. So it's just like the further down you go in Euclid, you eventually end up in East Cleveland. So East Cleveland started off as Millionaire's Row. John D. Rockefeller, the richest man in human history, made all of his money in Cleveland. And he was born in Cleveland, and his grave is in Cleveland. So he started the city of East Cleveland, and all of his rich friends, all of the other wealthy Clevelanders moved to East Cleveland. But over time, after a little something called white flight took place, East Cleveland lost all of its gigantic mansions and all of its rich residents. And today it is actually the poorest city in the state of Ohio. So East Cleveland literally went from being the richest city on earth at one point to the poorest city within its state. In only about, I want to say like 80, 90 years, I mean maybe even less. It was like the Great Depression really ruined everything for East Cleveland, and it just never ever even like remotely came close to coming back, and it's just weird. And I know I was supposed to be talking about the borders, but East Cleveland doesn't really have any interesting borders, so we're going to move on to Cleveland Heights. Cleveland Heights is another one of the oldest suburbs of Cleveland. It's huge. It's got about 50,000 people in it, and if you look around here, there are just like some really weird things that go on with its borders. So if we go to Fairmount Boulevard, which is what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to click on Shaker Heights, actually. If we go to Fairmount, which is this street, so if you start right here, you end up getting into this little spot. So on the right side of the road, you're in University Heights. On the left side of the road, or I should just say on one side, you're in University Heights. On the other side, you're in Shaker Heights. But then you cross this little line here, and in the 1950s, I believe, Shaker Heights annexed every house along, I mean like every house. I don't mean it annexed Fairmount Boulevard. It annexed the houses along Fairmount Boulevard up until South Green Road right here. So Shaker Heights has jurisdiction over all these houses, but as soon as you go into the street, like 1 yard of distance, you're in University Heights. So I think if I just click right here, there will be a sign saying, "Welcome to University Heights." I hope I'm right, because some of them don't. Yeah, look, here, this is the sign. "Leaving University Heights. Welcome to University Heights." It's like, it's crazy to me, because right here at the end of the street, you have a Shaker Street sign, but you're in University Heights, like no parking on Shaker Heights streets. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It's kind of just like nonsensical to me. But then you keep going down Fairmount, yada yada, you're down Fairmount. You hit Fairmount Circle. So you get to Fairmount Circle, and if you go take a right, this is John Carroll University, which is the reason that the city is called University Heights. But you can also go on University Boulevard, which goes into University Heights. But if you just keep going straight and you just go around the circle, you keep going down, you're still in Shaker. It's okay, you're still in Shaker, yeah. But then, all of a sudden, you're not in Shaker anymore, you're in Cleveland Heights, right here. And for some reason, Cleveland Heights has jurisdiction over this little bit of land here. And it also has jurisdiction over half of Horseshoe Lake, not all of it. Not even half of it. It has jurisdiction over like a little bit of it. The border is showing it this way because Google does that with maritime borders, but weird, huh? And then if you go up, Lower Shaker Lake is literally split down the middle between Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights, which is just weird. And if you go, and let's just keep looking at Shaker Heights' borders now that we're here. Why does this little thing protrude out from Shaker Heights? Well, the answer to that is that Shaker Heights was established in the year 1911 by the Van Swearingen brothers, who were making one of the first master plan communities in the United States. So Shaker Heights is a planned community, like down to the T. Everything in Shaker Heights was like meticulously laid out. The houses were like, okay, this house is good, this house is not good. There are really strict building codes, etc., etc. So what the Van Swerigens wanted, they didn't want any shopping centers or any like business really to be in Shaker. They wanted it to be purely residential, which was a problem because its borders encompassed the Shaker Square neighborhood, which was one of the first outdoor shopping centers in the entire United States. So here's Shaker Square. It's like there's stores all along here. It's a nice shopping center. I grew up a mile away, so I would always walk to Shaker Square for the farmers market. But yeah, so if I could click on Shaker Heights again, so we see this weird protrusion in Shaker up here. So up here, you wonder why this is part of it. Well, basically, the Van Swerigen brothers and the city of Cleveland made an agreement where Shaker Square would be politically a part of the city of Cleveland. However, it's the people who lived there would be sending their students to Shaker Heights schools. So Shaker Heights has its own school district just for the city of Shaker. However, it does also, the school district, encompass a few neighborhoods of Cleveland. So if I can actually look up the school district's map, school district. It didn't work. So it could have shown you the borders, but basically the borders are like, this is part of it. So you have a lot of people that actually live in the city of Cleveland sending their kids to Shaker schools. But the reason that this little bit of it stayed part of Shaker is because Mayor Van Aken, the mayor of Shaker in the 1920s and 30s, Mayor William Van Aken had like property here. And he was like, no. My property's staying in Shaker Heights. And Cleveland was like, okay. And to this day, this has never been changed. So Warwick Road and Northmoreland Boulevard are just part of Shaker, and so is Kenmore. And these two streets are the weirdest thing. Cheshire and Kendall Road right here. So these two streets were literally like, they're the newest, youngest streets in Shaker Heights. They are like from the 1960s, I think. And literally Shaker Heights was like out of land except for that spot. So they're like, all right, the only way we can get more property taxes flowing into our city is if we build more houses and if we build them right here. And so in the 1960s, they built more houses. And I think it's funny because it's like, you just don't hear about that very often. Like, it's very interesting to me that the land had to be allotted a certain way just to like, for a certain reason. And like these two streets, no one in Shaker even knows they exist, and Shaker's so small. And like if you go on Street View right here, you can see like in the Larchmere shopping district right here, there's a Shaker street sign right here, Cheshire Larchmere. But if you go across the street, literally right across the street, it's Cleveland street signs. So Cleveland sign, Shaker sign. The only indication that you're in Shaker Heights is the street sign's colors. That's fascinating to me. Anyway, we're gonna move on to one last group of suburbs before this video ends up getting too long. We're gonna click on Lawrenceville Heights. So here we have Lawrenceville Heights. Now, Lawrenceville Heights is the pretty much last community to form. Well, no. It's the second to last community to form out of Lawrenceville Township. And the reason that, and you might be wondering, holy crap, I'm going to click on this. You might be wondering, holy crap, why is it shaped like that? Like, what is going on? And the reason it's shaped like that is because the village of North Randall exists. Why does North Randall exist, you may ask? Well, in the year 1908, I think it was 1908, North Randall was home to a very, very famous derby track, like a horse racing, horse gambling track. And today, this is Jack Thistledown Racino, so it's still there. It's still there. But it was called the Randall Park, like, horse arena. I don't know, like, derby track. I don't know what they really called it, but I know it was called the Randall Park, whatever. And North Randall incorporated itself as a village in 1908 in order to keep its tax base from the horse racing arena thing within its own borders. But the thing is, Lawrenceville Township had no incorporated communities like at this time other than like Shaker Heights. So North Randall was just kind of by itself. And then eventually in 1925, Lawrenceville Heights incorporated itself. But the only part of Lawrenceville Heights that actually incorporated itself was like, I think the eastern part here. This western part came along a little later on, but in 1925, Lawrenceville Heights incorporated, and over time, it ended up almost completely surrounding the village of North Randall, which is just the weirdest, most unnecessary thing. If you go to this intersection right here on Emory, and I want to say that's Northfield. Yeah, so if I go to this intersection, maybe you can see the street signs changing color. Oh, I didn't even click on it right. You can see like this. This says, "Welcome to Village of North Randall." And then over here, you have those are white signs. Over here, you have brown signs for Lawrenceville Heights. Well, okay, I'm wrong. These are all white signs, but you get the point. Like, the border is really strange. But what's even stranger is this little guy up here, Highland Hills. Highland Hills, oh, by the way, North Randall is only home to like 1,000 people. Lawrenceville Heights is about 13,000. But Highland Hills only has 900 people. So why does it exist, is what you might be asking. Well, the reason it exists is because in 1990, Lawrenceville Township still existed. It just didn't have very much land left. So Highland Hills was what was left of Lawrenceville Township, plus a little bit more around the edges, but like mostly what you're seeing here was what was left of Lawrenceville Township. And Highland Hills was created by a company called Figgy International, because they wanted to put their global headquarters in Lawrenceville Township. But the only real way they could do that and also ensure that the tax base from their world headquarters stayed within the borders of where it was to incorporate. So they incorporated the village of Highland Hills. And then, what do you know, the next year they canceled their plans to make the headquarters. So the reason Highland Hills was incorporated in 1990, by the way, it's the newest, youngest village city or anything in all of Cuyahoga County, and it probably will be for a long time. But, you know, the only reason it incorporated never even happened. So it's just weird. And I remember one day I walked into the Highland Hills village. So this part up here on Northfield Road, the little reason it annexed this side of the street is because this is where the Highland Hills Police Department, City Hall, everything is. Highland Hills is literally just this golf course, this cemetery. You have Tri-C's Eastern Campus here, and you have this. This is the residential part of Highland Hills. Just these few little streets. The rest of it is either empty land or owned by something that isn't the village of Highland Hills. So it creates a really weird situation. But I remember I walked into the village hall and I asked for the mayor because I wanted to ask him questions about what it's like to run such a Highland Hills is like a fake city. It's a government for no one. There are only 900 people, and most of the city's land is owned by either the city of Cleveland or Cuyahoga Community College or a golf course. It's like either privately or publicly owned land. So Highland Hills can't do anything with it. And it's just weird. Like, what are you the mayor of if your village has no people and no empty space? But yeah, he was a really nice guy. I didn't phrase it quite like that when I asked him questions, but he was a nice guy, Michael T. Booker. And so Highland Hills. So I think in this video we covered Bracknell, we covered East Cleveland, we got a little bit of Cleveland Heights, we got some of Shaker Heights, Beechwood. We got none of Beechwood. We got Highland Hills, North Randall, and Lawrenceville Heights. If you guys found this video interesting at all, let me know if you want me to make another one. If you didn't find this video interesting, that's okay. I'm glad you watched it, but ooh, we got a cop pulling someone over. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will make more videos coming up soon. Please check out my Cleveland video if you have not already. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, that's all for now.